Det var här i en gatukorsning mitt i centrala Stockholm som statsminister Olof Palme sköts ner. Gärningsmannen eller gärningsmännen flydde sedan bort in i gränden uppför trapporna.
In February 1986, Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme was walking home from the cinema. He was shot and killed. To this day, the assassin is unknown. Palme had a presumed successor, Bernd Carlsson. Carlsson was Undersecretary General of the United Nations. He was headed to New York to sign the Tripartite Accord, which would liberate Southwest Africa, Namibia, from South African control. In December of 1988, Carlsson boarded a flight bound from London Heathrow to New York John F. Kennedy. It was a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, christened the Clipper Maid of the Seas, operating as Pan Am Flight 103. There had been a warning. An anonymous caller contacted the U.S. Embassy in Helsinki, Finland. The caller warned that a U.S. jetliner would be carrying a bomb concealed in a Toshiba radio. Maybe nobody understood the warning because this is the Finnish phrase for exploding suitcase. Carlsson's flight, 103, exploded over the town of Lockerbie, Scotland. The explosion killed 11 people on the ground and killed 259 people aboard the aircraft. Investigators found a hole in the fuselage of the 747, and they found a Toshiba radio. Was it just a coincidence that Bernd Carlsson was on Flight 103, or was the explosion an assassination? Who would want him killed? And who would have wanted to kill Olof Palme? Good evening. The terrorist attack that destroyed Pan Am 103 was deceptively simple, but it's a story of the Cold War, apartheid, arms trade, and corporate greed. Thank you for joining me. Guten Abend und herzlich willkommen. Der Terroranschlag, dann der Pan Am Flug 103 zerstörte, wäre natürlich einfach. Es ist eine Geschichte von Kartenkrieg, Apartheid, Waffenhandel und Unternehmensgier. Vielen Dank. God afton. Terrorattacken som förstörde Pan Am Flug 103 var beträgligt enkel. Detta berättelse om det kalla kriget, apartheid, vapenhandel och företagskriget. Tack så mycket. Shalom Mehavtov. mit כף התחוש שעשה את טיסת פנאם מאה 3 הייתה פשוטה בצורה מטעה. זו היסטוריה הנחה הקרה, אפרטהייד, שחרר בנשק ותעבוד בצע של אבות. תודה רבה. Olof Palme and Bernd Carlsson were democratic socialists, and they maintained Sweden's neutrality during the Cold War. Olof Palme also maintained a friendship with Sweden's neighbor, the German Democratic Republic, East Germany.
Son to Stockholm is a 16:30 flight from Airlines to Stockholm.
East Berlin?
Yes, miss.
East Germany was a satellite state of the Soviet Union. Their socialist regime was expensive, and they needed hard currency. Sweden helped them to get it. One of Sweden's best-known companies, IKEA, outsourced some furniture production to East Germany. Political prisoners were manufacturing the Friheten and Klagshamn sofas. Maybe they're not so cozy after you know who manufactured these. Or perhaps you couldn't figure out the instructions and they never got assembled anyway. IKEA furniture wasn't the only source of cash for East Germany. East Germany sold weapons and supplies to communist revolutionary regimes in southern Africa, particularly in Angola and Mozambique. The United States, Israel, and Western Europe wanted to suppress these regimes and support the other side, South Africa. But the United Nations had placed an embargo on arms sales to the apartheid government in southern Africa.
Our policy is one which is called by an Afrikaans word apartheid. And I'm afraid that has been misunderstood so often. It could just as easily, and perhaps much better, be described as a policy of good neighborliness.
The USA and other countries made covert arms sales to South Africa, often using East Germany as an intermediary. East Germany profited from both sides. They outwardly supported their communist allies, but they quietly kept the war going with arms sales to South Africa. Olof Palme and Bernd Carlson were the Allen wrenches in a well-oiled arms machine. Palme and Carlson were fervently opposed to apartheid. Ending these conflicts in southern Africa would wreck East Germany's profitable arms trade. Carlson's plans for Namibia's independence would weaken South Africa's control. It was also possible that Palme and Carlson knew of East Germany's underhanded business practices, and there was a risk that they could unveil East Germany's misdeeds. East Germany would not have wanted Carlson to get to New York to sign the tripartite accord. The Toshiba radio found in the wreckage contained Semtex, a plastic explosive produced by East Germany's ally and neighbor, Czechoslovakia. The radio was called a Toshiba bomb beat. There was also a timer, which was manufactured by Mabo Telecommunications, a Swiss company. Mabo had previously sold timers to East Germany's Ministry for State Security. East Germany seemed to be the likely offender. Maybe not. The bag also contained baby clothes. The baby clothes were traced to Mary's Place, a shop in Malta. The proprietor of Mary's Place, Tony Gauci, recalled an unlikely customer prior to the explosion of Flight 103. An Arabic-speaking man had purchased an unusual supply of baby clothes. The baby clothes enthusiast turned out to be Abdelbaset Ali Mohammed al-Maghrabi, a Libyan intelligence officer. Moreover, Mabo, the timer manufacturer, had manufactured a radio communications ship, which it had sold to Libya. It was not a total surprise that Libya would enter the chat.
Oh my God. They found me. I don't know how, but they found me. Run for it, Marty! Who? Who do you think? The Libyans!
Libya and East Germany had collaborated before. 2 years before the crash of Flight 103, a bomb exploded at La Belle, a discotheque in Kurfürstendamm, Berlin. It was favored by U.S. servicemen and women. 2 U.S. soldiers and 1 Turkish bystander were killed. The bomb was traced to the Libyan embassy in East Berlin. Libya had been an Italian colony until World War II.
The Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family.
After the war, it was under the control of the Senussi Order, a monarchy commanded by King Idris I.
Reckless and irresponsible.
Different Idris. King Idris was a weak leader. When oil was discovered in 1959, the country became increasingly corrupt. Despite oil wealth, the money was kept in the hands of Idris, the United States, and Great Britain, leaving Libyan people in poverty. A bloodless coup in 1969 brought Muammar Mohammed Abu Minyar Gaddafi into leadership. He nationalized Libya's oil and he curtailed production so as to boost the price. Gaddafi maintained some popular approval through support of infrastructure programs like healthcare, bolstering women's rights, and introducing literacy programs. Gaddafi resented the United States, Great Britain, and Western Europe. He expelled Libya's Jews and expressed more than a little distaste for the state of Israel.
Yeah, who doesn't love the Jews?
Gaddafi used his oil wealth to fund anti-colonial and socialist activities around the world, from the Black Panthers to the Irish Republican Army to the Moro Islamic Liberation Front in the Philippines. U.S. President Ronald Reagan had little patience with Gaddafi. Above all, Reagan viewed Gaddafi's Libya as a satellite state of the Soviet Union.
Now, practice being American waiters.
How many in your party?
There are 30 million in Communist Party.
Gaddafi would claim that international waters off the Libyan coast to be his own. This resulted in dogfights between the U.S. and Libyan forces over the Mediterranean. The situation worsened when Libya shot and killed a London police officer, Yvonne Fletcher. She was guarding an anti-Gaddafi protest outside the Libyan embassy in London. In 1986, the United States launched Operation El Dorado Canyon, a series of strikes on Libya, including Gaddafi's own house. He was home, but the attack missed him. If he wasn't angry at the USA before, there was one more country involved in the downing of the 747 over Lockerbie.
Worst place you can think of.
Universal City.
Libya has many historic parallels with Iran. Like Libya, Iran had been ruled by a weak and corrupt monarch, Shah Reza Pahlavi. In 1979, the Shah was overthrown, replaced by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Khomeini shared Gaddafi's anger for American involvement in the Middle East, referring to the USA as the Great Satan. I guess that's better than being a subpar Satan. Iran became embroiled in a border war with Iraq. Iraq received support from the United States and Western Europe, including support for its dictator, Saddam Hussein, and that worked out really well in the long run.
Now that I have a kid, sometimes I find myself thinking, is he going to end up going to some war that ends up not doing any good for the world and receive a bunch of care afterwards? Gunfire everywhere, a couple of RPGs, and I was just thinking, what the f am I doing here? And that question never went away.
U.S. forces had been guarding the Persian Gulf, especially to protect tankers and supply ships that would be supporting Saddam Hussein's Iraq. In July 1988, an aircraft carrier, the USS Vincennes, spotted an Iranian aircraft, and the Vincennes shot it down with a surface-to-air missile. It wasn't an Iranian military aircraft at all. It was a civilian flight, an Airbus A300 flown by Iran Air. The missile killed all 290 people on board. The United States sort of apologized to Iran. President Reagan gave Iran 2 Airbus aircraft as replacements, but U.S. Vice President George Herbert Walker Bush stated that he didn't care what the facts were and that he wasn't an apologize for America kind of guy. Perhaps Iran was too swept up in its war with Iraq to retaliate. Hello, Libya. Muammar Gaddafi said, "Call your boy."
Hello, and thank you for calling Libya today. You can say things like, "I'd like a terrorist attack," or, "I'd like to negotiate an arms deal." I'm sorry I didn't get that. Our menu options have recently changed. You can say things like, "Negotiate arms deal."
It is unclear if Iran asked Gaddafi to take action, if Gaddafi volunteered to strike back on Iran's behalf, or if it was all a big terrorist coincidence. Gaddafi's henchman, Abdel Basset al-Maghrabi, the guy buying the baby clothes in Malta. One of his assignments was he was head of security for Libyan Arab Airlines. This was a state-owned enterprise with both military and civilian roles. Al-Maghrabi knew how Gaddafi could strike an American jumbo jet. He knew where there were weaknesses in the security infrastructure. One such weakness involved passenger bag reconciliation. This means that a bag should not be loaded into the hold of an aircraft unless the passenger assigned to it is also on board. 1 year prior, Sikh terrorists checked in a bag for an Air India flight bound from Montreal to London. A bag containing a bomb was loaded. The passenger who had checked the bag in did not board the flight. The bomb in the unaccompanied bag killed 329 people as the 747 crashed off the Irish coast. It's unclear exactly how al-Maghrabi and others did it. The most likely explanation is that Gaddafi's comrades at Libyan Arab Airlines snagged a luggage tag from the airline next door to them at a nearby airport in Malta. They used a rush tag. A rush tag on a rush bag isn't necessarily in a rush at all. It often means that the bag and its associated passenger have been involuntarily separated. A diversion, cancellation, weight and balance problem might mean that the passenger and bag are flown on separate aircraft. But it wasn't the passenger's idea, so the bag is not reconciled with the passenger when it's loaded.
I should send you to St. Louis.
No, he's not worth it.
Al-Maghrabi's team placed a rush tag on the bag containing the Toshiba radio, Semtex, and baby clothes. The bag was tagged for connecting flights, a Pan Am flight from Frankfurt to London and a second Pan Am flight from London to New York Kennedy. This was a so-called interline bag, meaning that it would switch airlines in the middle of its voyage, further opening opportunities for tampering or security vulnerability. The bag arrived at Pan Am's operations in Frankfurt, flew on to London, and was loaded on the Clipper Made of the Seas at Heathrow. What about Pan American World Airways, Pan Am? They're the other culpable party in this tragedy. Pan Am was the unofficial flag carrier of the United States. For most of its existence, Pan Am was limited to international routes. You couldn't take Pan Am from Denver to Houston. No, Pan Am had flights to Leningrad, Montevideo, and Nice.
Hello, New York. Your Pan Am 323 just landed Kingston, Jamaica.
Many routes were flown for prestige, not profit. Pan Am was a mess in the 1980s, and they faced increasing oil costs, industry competition, an aging and inefficient fleet.
We'll need that to live.
If word gets out about this, Quasi Clown Airlines will be a laughingstock.
They had expensive hubs in New York, London, and Frankfurt. Pan Am needed to cut corners. And they also had greater exposure to security risks, serving more sensitive destinations in the world. In 1986, members of the Abu Nidal organization hijacked a Pan Am 747 in Karachi.
So I found out at some point that this was the Abu Nidal organization, who are a mercenary terrorist outfit. And they had been paid, we found out much later, by Colonel Gaddafi to cause some pain for the Americans out of revenge for the bombing raid that Ronald Reagan had ordered earlier that year on Libya. We heard that they had intended to crash the plane. If they had had a pilot, the intention was to fly it over Israel and crash it somewhere.
21 people were killed. When the bag arrived from Malta, Pan Am security staff screened the bag with an X-ray machine that was known to be faulty. The X-ray operator wasn't wearing his glasses. The memo from Helsinki about a Toshiba radio was hidden under a stack of papers. The X-ray operator found out about the warning 11 months later, after a US television interview. Even if there was no rush tag, Pan Am had been breaking the law. The United States required that passenger bag reconciliation be conducted on all international flights, especially after the Air India bombing. Pan Am didn't bother. They claimed that X-raying the bags, even with faulty equipment, satisfied US requirements. Gaddafi got away with it. So he did it again. Libya had recently lost a border war with Chad.
Yo, what's up?
No, not that Chad. Chad had been supported by its colonial power, France, and Gaddafi was humiliated. He wanted to seek revenge on France. In 1989, Gaddafi's agents loaded a bomb in a suitcase in Brazzaville, in the People's Republic of Congo. The flight went on to N'Djamena, Chad, and was destined for Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport. It was a DC-10 jumbo jet flown by UTA, Union de Transport Aérien, a French airline. The bomb killed all 170 people on board. UTA Flight 772 crashed in the Tenere Desert of Niger. There is an impressive memorial, but is in an unreachable part of war-torn Niger. East and West Germany were united in 1989, ending the East German government. South Africa's apartheid regime fell in 1990. Pan Am went bankrupt in 1991. Their insurers paid some compensation to the families of victims, but the exact amount is unknown. But Pan Am didn't pay the whole amount. Pan Am never paid any penalties for its security violations. Libya was to pay $2.7 billion to the families of Flight 103. They only paid 2 of 3 installments. Libya did pay $1 million per victim to the families of UTA Flight 772. Gaddafi was overthrown and he was killed in 2011. Al-Mirabi was in prison in the United Kingdom but was given compassionate release due to advanced prostate cancer. The Islamic Republic of Iran is still in place.
So the bullets do not really kill?
The bullets do not kill, and that is the message that the people of Iran gave to all oppressed peoples of the world.
Technology has improved passenger bag reconciliation, but bags are not matched on US domestic flights. Rush tags are still used, even on interline trips. Does this answer the question of who killed Olof Palme, or whether Bernd Carlson's death was just a coincidence? No. Did Iran ask Gaddafi to attack Flight 103? We'll probably never know. I did look to see which movie Olof and Lisbeth Palme went to see on the night of his assassination. I was thinking Our American Cousin or JFK. It was the Mozart brothers.
Welcome, bienvenue.
It got a 2 out of 10 on IMDb, described as an artsy-fartsy, abysmal Fellini wannabe that snowballs into a charade